Hi everyone, this is Garrett McKenzie, and what you're watching is an overview of the core processor training system that I developed. This training was built based on a lot of complaints I got from fellow professionals. Basically, there's been some problems with the type of training that takes place in classroom. There's literally only about a half hour spent out of a 2-day class that takes place on the press. The rest just takes place in the classroom, and people don't seem to retain that information. So what I've done is I've created a system that actually takes place directly on the floor. There's maybe 1 or 2 hours it takes place in a classroom setting, but the majority of this takes place with hands-on at the press. So it's a lot better approach, and it's more likely to be retained by the mind. So to give you an idea of how we would get started, let me bring up the website real quick. Up in the top right corner of the website, there's actually a link, and it takes you to plastic injection testing. And what this is, it's a 50-question assessment that gives a good idea of what level your technician or manager or whoever would be taking the test would be as far as their plastics skill set. It ranges from material handler all the way up to process engineer. And like I said, it's 50 questions. They would take this test, and then we would take those results from the test and determine what skills they need to work on most. That way, when I develop your 2-day training program for your company, and we're using your presses, your materials, your molds, etc., then they're going to get the most benefit out of those 2 days of training. So just to give you an idea, a recent training that I did with CH3, what basically their technicians took the test and they needed more controller training. So a good portion of the first day was actually devoted to the controller. Basically, we went over every single page and every single point, and so we're talking about clamp close, clamp open, clamp close, eject forward, eject track, inject profile. We talk about different pressures and speeds, the difference between speed and pressure, how one affects the other. Then we also go over the whole profile page, the recovery profile page, and then we go over extensively the temperature profile page. We're going to go over set points, actuals, feed throat temp, the GPM going through your feed throat as far as water and the importance of turbulent flow. We're going to talk about straight metered ramp reverse profile setups, and how to set up the alarms. We're also going to go over melt temperature extensively, and I'm going to show them how to take the actual melt temperature while the press is in a running condition. And we're going to go over sprue bushings, nozzles, and hot runner nozzles. And then we're going to go over the mold. I'm going to show them how to set up a clamp, and we're going to go over the thermolator and hot oil units. We're going to talk about actuals, and we're going to talk about pressure to supply, pressure return, and calculate the pressure drop. And we're going to discuss turbulent flow. We're also going to talk about gallons per minute or liters per minute, and we're going to talk about how to go about mold mapping, and also the direction of flow, the importance of direction of flow. Materials, we will go over material extensively. Basically, I'm going to go over the entire extrusion process, how materials are made, from my own experience working as a concentrate extruder. And we're going to talk about proper drying techniques, and we're actually going to go over the dryer. I'm going to show them how the dryer works, and I'm going to show them how to troubleshoot problems with the dryer. We'll also be discussing the Venturi effect and how that, as the air flows through in its circle, it actually leaves a small area of material at the bottom that doesn't fill. So that's why you end up having to drain 25-50 pounds on a start. And then we're going to go over proper purging techniques, proper startup and shutdown techniques, and we'll also be going over how to perform a 3 to 7 minute color change, and that's based on basically explaining to them the difference in colors. It's a method I call X1, X2, X3, X4. X1 being white, X4 being black, and then X2 and X3 of course are shades in between, and how to use those shades to determine how well you need to clean so that you know where your speed's going to be. The 3 to 7 minute color change, it actually shows the technique where you're actually changing over the dryer while the press is still running the old color, and this can be done with dried material just the same as materials that don't require drying. Then I'm going to go extensively into it's a portion of the program I developed for training setups. It's basically called NASCAR versus quick changeover, and what we're going to do is we'll actually have them set a mold, and we will do a time study, and we will look at things that are creating waste of motion within their setup. We'll talk about the need for proper tools and the need for basically planning the change, how to set yourself up to where you eliminate waste of motion from your setup. And it's some really good information. We'll also go into visual management tools, basically tools that were designed quite primarily by the Japanese manufacturing approach. And then we'll also set some goals for based on what your current setup times are and how to improve upon those setup times. And then we're going to go extensively into troubleshooting. We will go over all defects. That's probably part of the classroom portion. Basically I have a large series of pictures that I go through showing bubbles, voids, color swirls, streaks, burns, flash, shorts, and I explain all the different things that all the different tools that are available to you, including scientific process monitoring and control, how you can use that data to determine what has changed, if the process has already been validated, which of course I will be also going over process validation, explaining the process validation rule, that basically once a process has been established, it needs to run 8 hours with no scrap, high yield, and once it's run that 8 hours, at that point you record the process. Then the next time that this runs, you set it up to that process, and it needs to repeat itself again, and if it repeats, then it is a validated process, and that will be your process that you'll be doing a full historical, you'll be taking all historical data on that process, and I'll show them all the steps to do that. We'll also go extensively over the mold. We'll talk about how to inspect and clean. We'll be talking about vents, parting line damage, tonnage, and we'll also talk about how you can use tonnage to adjust for defects. We're going to talk about hot runner as far as the actuals versus the set point, and we're also going to go into dimensional, how to use mold temperature to make dimensional changes. we'll go extensively into ejection, talk about burrs, cooling time, how sweating and leaks can affect the mold, affect your process, and ways to try to eliminate sweating. And then we're going to go extensively over monitoring, process monitoring. So we'll be discussing fill time, screw rotate time, cushion, peak pressure, temperature actuals, melt temp, screw rotate, material feeding, and we'll talk about dryer throughput, also what can happen from poor loading or poor mixing. We'll go extensively over drying, and then there's a pretty large portion that's basically attributed to regrind use. I explain the difference between regrind and virgin material as far as molecular chain and how to make adjustments for that. And then we'll also go over the 5 M's, which the 5 M's of molding are the man mold, machine, material, and maintenance. I'll explain that if something has changed and you have a problem, you need to use the 5 M's to determine what is causing the problem. Is it man? Is it machine? Is it material? And that will give you an avenue for coming up with a solution to fix the problem. Alright, so that gives you a pretty good overview of what the training will be about. The cost of the class is $3,500 for the 2 days. And as I said, this is 2 days on the press. This is not classroom training. This takes place on your presses, using your presses, molds, materials, controllers. So it's definitely going to help them to retain the information that they learn as far as trying to go into a strange facility and learn these techniques using machinery in a plant that they're not accustomed to. So if you're interested in this training, just give me a call. My number is 404-793-9834, or you can reach me through the website training@plastic411.com. That's the email for the training program. So I thank you for your time, and you have a great day.
out soon.